Philip Pearlstein was an artist who made a significant impact on the history of American art by painting nudes in a realistic, detached, sometimes direct and sometimes bold manner. He died in Manhattan in December 2022, aged 98. His death marked the end of a great American artist who had gone his own way in the 1950s against the predominant wave of modernism and abstract art, insisting on a return to figurative painting and realism. Born in 1924 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to parents of Russian and Lithuanian immigrants, Philip Pearlstein grew up in a difficult time in the Great Depression and in a difficult economic environment. But from a young age, Pearlstein exhibited strong artistic talent and passion, supported by his parents' weekend classes at the Carnegie Museum, and his artistic talent laid a foundation for his growth. Pearlstein had already won national awards and been on the cover of magazines when he was in high school. But the beginning of World War II would cast a dark shadow over Pearlstein's youth and plunge him into the turmoil of war. His schooling at Carnegie Institute of Technology was interrupted by World War II, and he went to work in Florida as a graphic designer, creating training charts, weapons assembly manuals, and diagrams. He also created an artistic foundation for the future by studying and observing the composition of the human body during his military career, which included personal sketches and watercolors that documented his life as a soldier. After serving in the military and leaving university in 1949, he moved to Manhattan with a college colleague of his, Andy Warhol, who became his first roommate and began his career as a graphic designer in New York City. Pearlstein's early works, such as his depictions of the Statue of Liberty and comic book characters, which he later described as reminiscent of the Symbolist era, inadvertently laid the foundation for the pop art movement, sharing a parallel artistic trajectory with figures like Andy Warhol. But in the 1950s, when pop art, minimalism, and conceptualism dominated art, he took a different path when he started doing everyday drawings and nude paintings in the studio. It was a choice that, at first, seemed to cut his career in half, but when he looked back on it, it was his first step towards becoming an important artist who had chosen a path that was independent and revolutionary. In the 1950s, the word realism in the art world, in the words of contemporary art historian Linda Nochlin, was regarded as a criminal in the eyes of the abstractity law. It was an outcast on the periphery of the dominant art world of abstract painting. However, Philip Pearlstein recognized the necessity of bridging the divide between realism and abstract painting, diverging from the abstract expressionist movement and advocating for a return to direct observation and portrayal of reality. However, his approach to nudity differed radically from the idealized figures often seen in art history. His realism was clearly a reflection of the artist's intention, not of beauty or idealization, but of sensitivity and honesty. His models ignored the traditional poses and slouched down, and their faces struggled to revitalize due to boredom and exhaustion. The graphic light also splintered their anatomy into low-toned abstract planets, while the writers ruthlessly cut their figures to the edges of canvas. And a lot of the time, by being much higher up than the models, he was able to create a sharp, gritty reality that was both callous and unsettling, and convincing. Pearlstein's models candidly depicted their bodies as those of ordinary individuals, showcasing their flaws, their beauty, or their lack thereof, in their truest form. His stylized expressions show a new interpretation of realism by not only showing not only beauty, but also by being the most honest reflection of the human body. Pearlstein's highly realistic paintings bear similarities to the imagery found in photorealism. They emphasize precision and accuracy by paying close attention to the details of the subject. But his approach is different from the spirit of photorealism, in that he doesn't rely on photography, but on direct observation. Pearlstein treated his subjects as if they were components in a still life, and paid attention to the form of the body, to the color of the body, and to changes in light. And so, as one critic said, he'd been fascinated all his life with the subject matter of the body, and had no interest in the sensationalism of the human body or anything like that. Because his body is not alluring, and he treats the human body as if it were the surface of an inanimate object, sees his model as an element of his design, giving the viewer an opportunity to look at the human body from a different perspective through the characters in his films. He wanted his paintings to generate enough power and interest to be competitively exhibited with his friends' abstract work. In the 1960s, he began hiring models to do portraits in a strictly controlled studio environment. And while he initially followed the expressionist style of his early landscapes, in the end, his work unveiled at a gallery in New York City in 1962, and his callous nature, contradicting the highly emotional and dramatic flow of abstract expressionism. was shocked the art world. His later works combined decorative elements like Turkish carpets and African masks to create complex compositions that challenge the perception of space. His technique of starting from the center of the canvas and working outside of the canvas against the conventional perspective showed us the philosophy of modernism about the flat and his interpretation of cubism. Pearlstein spent decades researching and developing his own artistic vision. And eventually, his nude works, characterized by bold and precise depictions, garnered attention from both audiences and critics, solidifying his position as a pioneer of American realism. But for Pearlstein, I think the most important thing was not just as an artist, thinking about style and choosing style, but philosophical stance and attitude. In an interview with The New York Times in 2002, he remarked, "The process of creating a work is fraught with uncertainty at every turn." In short, Philip Pearlstein's philosophy of art was to persistently look at reality and capture the potential beauty and meaning of the moment. During his career, Pearlstein spent time with students at the Pratt Institute and Brooklyn College, dedicated to education. He said that it was through this period of teaching that he was able to articulate clearly his own mental process of creating a piece of art. His influence on Chuck Close and Sylvia Plimick, Mangold, and the next generation of realist artists. As he entered the later years of his artistic career, Pearlstein's influence reached its zenith and was widely recognized. But in the midst of his own success, he continued to paint with unwavering loyalty and persistence, an attitude that continues to inspire artists to this day. Philip Pearlstein's successful battle for the return of realism to challenge both abstract expressionism and pop art brought a resurgence of representative expressionist painting in America. He was widely regarded as a fundamental overturner of the standards of modern art criticism at the time, when he believed abstract painting was the only and valid way of art, often cited and inspired his former students to approach art with an open mind and explore a wide range of artistic styles and works. His artistic philosophy, which exhibited courage for seeing the world as it is and exposing it as it is, has a profound impact on the art world. He was remembered as a pioneer of modern realism, and his efforts to challenge convention and push the boundaries of artistic expression put him in a notable position in the art world. Today, we've had the opportunity to delve into the life and art of Philip Pearlstein, who transcended the mere depiction of the naked body and sought to express the essence of human existence with honesty through nudity. We'll be back with more interesting and meaningful topics for the next episode. Thank you.